Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So, my mind goes back to 1972. There was a young man then who, after 17 years of rather stressful education in some leading schools and colleges, finally got ready to enter the world of business and joined a large Indian corporate at a handsome salary those days of 800 rupees a month. I recall this incident because my guest this afternoon is all of 21 and I was 21 then that I spoke about. The only difference is that at the age of 21, our young friend has already had 3 rounds of funding, first for some 20, 30 odd lakhs, then for about 100 crores, and last month for about 600 crores. I think probably I should issue this statutory warning, which I have issued for myself and internalized it. Most of us in this room are a little bit older than 21, and I think many of us consider ourselves successful, but by whatever yardstick we measure our success, I think we'll have to get recalibrated after listening to young Ritesh. So Ritesh, it's really great to have you here at this Congress, at this summit whose theme is disruption. Ritesh, I read that you entered college and within 2 days just decided to quit college. How did that sort of come about? What went through your mind that made you say, to hell with it? And in 2 days?
So, first off, thank you so much for your kind words. Thanks for having me here. And other than that, with having 3 great sessions before this, after hearing Rahul and 2 great sessions we had before that, and then hearing this from you, this is overwhelming for me already. But to begin with, for me, at a lot of levels, as I built OYO into potentially one of the largest hotel brands in this country in a year and a half, when I begun, one of the things that I had in my mind was education is extremely important, but I will never let college interfere with my education. So I had this amazing opportunity.
But does that mean that, of course, you were disenchanted with the education you received at school and you had some friends who, after all these long years of education, were not really successful by your standards?
I think it's different for different people. Formal education might make a lot of people successful or not successful. For me, I was a different guy through my childhood. When I was very young, when I was in my 3rd grade, I started coding because I felt it was so amazing to write a few lines of code and see things happening on the computer screen. When I grew up post my 10th grade, when a lot of my friends started going for vacations, I spent time working with a couple of FMCG brands, local sales guys, to understand how their ground sales work.
And that was in Orissa.
That was in Orissa, yeah. So a lot of levels. That was GSK. I don't know if somebody's from GSK here, but it's over this period of time. I think because I was so different, I felt I wanted to do things differently and create real value. For me, the definition of success was different. So at a lot of levels, what I saw was people who really wanted to create value, were solving huge problems, and were doing things that were contrarian to usual things, were mostly entrepreneurs. And that is where one thing was clear, I wanted to create something. And the problem that I chose to solve, and you'd see this most successful companies globally being
So
created.
1 minute, but at that young age, how did you even know about the word entrepreneurs? I mean, did you
I did not.
meet many entrepreneurs when you were in school, or were you sort of
Yeah.
surrounded with entrepreneurs, or how did this thing
Come up.
come up?
Yeah, sometimes I ask this to myself. I could not spell the word well because it's difficult a couple of
Complicated.
years back. Yeah, it's complicated. and simplicity is the new complicated. So a couple of years back, so I grew up in Orissa, which is where I said I used to do all these different things. Post that, I got the opportunity to go to Kota, Rajasthan. A lot of people go for engineering school. Yeah, but potentially
especially for the entrance
test, absolutely. The good news about that place is, one, you don't have to, and nobody hear this, you don't have to go to school every day. You just can go to the training center, and school you can be going, a few days a month, and so on. During the period, an Empty Mind is a Devil's Workshop, I used to do well, but I used to feel very disenchanted that in the last couple of years since I built OYO, I've never used organic chemistry to solve my problems. And I felt very concerned. I felt very concerned what I aspire to do in my life. I did not know entrepreneur, but I definitely knew that I wanted to solve big problems. And this almost, if you'd asked 10 years back, very high quality people, they'd say we wanted to become an IS officer and solve India's problems. So, every generation has their own way of saying that we will solve big problems. In that period, I used to take weekend trains and come to Delhi. This was 2008, 2009, when the whole entrepreneurial ecosystem in India was being created. Make My Trip had gone public. A lot of young startups, Kunal Bell had just come back to India, started Snapdeal, and a bunch of these things were happening. I sneaked into those events because you see, in a lot of these kind of events, you basically have people with tags and people without tags. The people without tags are like the important ones. So I was the one without the tag. I just walked in. And that was a period when I met some of the smartest people I had ever met. Bunch of these people were like, there was a McKinsey partner. There were like bunch of these guys who had left their cushy jobs and wanted to solve big problems. I did not know what McKinsey was, right? Like I'd heard about it from a few friends, but I felt it was not as large a brand like HUL, for example. But I felt the guy is very smart. And he's trying to solve some of these problems. So for example, there were people talking about private railways, there were people talking about e-commerce, there were people talking about how cabs in the next generation are not going to be real infrastructure. Instead of that, it's just going to be on digital. It just felt to me, these are the people I want to surround myself with. And I'll do anything. So for a year, I reached out to these people and I said, I'll work for you for free. Every weekend I'll come and work for you for free. Ask me to do anything. And during this period, one thing was clear, I wanted to become an entrepreneur because I saw these people and they were solving some of the best problems. And I could not wait. One thing you would realize, and that Rahul was just saying, is speed is the new currency. And you feel really restless when you really want to do something and you can't. That's the reason it's very tough generally to work with entrepreneurs because they can see what needs to be created and until it is done, they're very restless. So for me, a year later, I started something, failed once, and then that changed to OYO. And it's been doing very well so far.
So Ritesh, tell our audience in your own words, since we've not broken your advertising campaign yet, I'm sure there's a little bit of confusion on what is OYO Rooms and is it a hotel or it's not a hotel, and how did this idea strike you?
Yeah.
First time in the world, the concept of OYO hotels is, I believe, a first in the world. So it's not like e-commerce, replicating something else. This is an idea born in India and it has come out of this young man's mind. What is that idea?
So, reality is it was not as if some night I woke up and I was like, I have this idea.
Yeah.
I dabbled into it. I dabbled into it because it was a personal pain point. So when I started the company, it started as an online booking service, which people would imagine is something that everyone does. During that period, I would wake up every day and stay in a new serviced apartment or a hotel or a bed and breakfast, etc., etc. This was for a period of 3 months, close to 100 properties, 3.5 months, close to 100 or 80 properties that I stayed in across the northern half of the country mostly, but also in the southern half. During this period, almost every day, I would encounter a new problem. If I were to give you a jigsaw of these experiences, you land at the city, so online reservation used to be great. You land at the city, call the hotel owner, he won't pick up your phone. You reach the hotel, there's no signage. You walk in, the receptionist is sleeping topless. You get into the room, the mattresses are torn. You have this end-to-end process that are broken down, which it is not as if any one of us is unaware about. All of us knew this problem existed for a long time. For me, I never wanted to build a company which was one more business. I wanted to create something that created a large impact. And if that was with just a few hotels, I was just fine about it. So among this period, what I learned was the problem here was not discoverability of these accommodations. Enough of them are available online and offline to discover. The problem is predictability and trust in these accommodations. So I basically said, I'll take one hotel and I'll standardize, brand, and manage it end to end. For 10 months, I used to be the housekeeping guy, the coder, and the sales guy for the same hotel. So this was one of these hotels I stayed in this 150 days, where I basically told the owner, you know what, your hotel is anyway empty all the time. I'm going to brand this. I'm going to standardize this and distribute. If you make money, great. Otherwise, throw me out in a month. Interestingly, in 6.5 months, this hotel was doing 95% occupancy. And we had massive repeat rates.
Which place was this?
This was in Gurgaon, South City 1. We called it the OYO Huda City Center. What we did was something that was very, very commonsensical, but unfortunately, because hospitality globally does not use technology a lot of these were first time in the world, which is fortunate for us, but unfortunate for such a long time. For example, every time you check in into an OYO, you're checked in via a mobile device very similar to Ola, and you know exact room number where the consumer is staying. You can order your food from your mobile phone, and when you check out, you can just walk out of the hotel, very similar to how you do with taxis. So effectively, people can book a room in 3 seconds, right in front of the hotel, walk into the room, sit in there, order food, coffee, etc., and walk out whenever they want to. This is technology side. You can imagine that hospitality is not just technology, it's a lot of human and cultural instinct as well as a part of the whole experience. In that, there are some very, very minimal efficiencies that we fixed because of operating a business at scale. Today, we operate 2,500 hotels in India. At this scale, for example, toiletries, each room, housekeeping, for our size of hotel, used to earlier take 22 minutes. In OYO, it is 12 minutes. The reason it happens is we said all the consistent things of the room, that is linen, cleaning, etc., will be standard. But the 10 minutes used to be taken for keeping toiletries in the right places, the pen and paper pads at the right place, the mineral water at the right place. We said, why do you need that? We took all of them, kept it in a single bag that we call the OYO bag, and we used to give that at check-in. Now 4 people can manage 2,000 rooms, which 4 people used to manage 10 rooms in the past. And by the way, it's a way of monetization for us because FMCG companies today use those toiletries bags to sample the new products that they're going to experiment. So a lot of levels, our view was saying we will not see what was done in the past. We will just say what is right for our guests, and we'll solve for that by using new age technologies and commonsensical attributes. And reality is that's how hopefully great companies are built.
But tell me, I mean, you got this. The first funding that you got was only 30 lakhs. And how many rooms did you manage to do in 30 lakhs? I mean, couldn't be too many.
Yeah. So I think the good thing about new age businesses is the capex is very limited. It's entirely on OPEX, and your cash flows are always negative cash flows, right? Like you're always getting the money before you pay others. I think 30 lakhs did not take us too far because that was the time when I was still discovering whether I should do OYO or not. But reality is, even with, let's say, assume we'd raised only 25-30 million until a month back when we raised the large round. In that 30-40 million, we were possibly able to create one of the largest hotel brands this country had created. It's unbelievably and it's massive. We ourselves keep pinching ourselves and asking if it really happened. I think it was possibly because of both the guests in the way they sort of adopted us, and because the guests adopted us, suppliers did. And I'll tell you why. Imagine 5 years back, did you take taxis for every reason? No, you did not. You took them only when you had really, really important things because they were expensive, you had to haggle, they were not great experiences, etc., etc. Today you take it for every reason. You drop your wife back, you pick your kids from school, and so on. We see the same thing happening with hotels. In Gurgaon alone, we book 50,000 nights a month. Today, as we speak. And that happens because when people get late from work at nights, they end up staying at OYOs. The cost of driving and of private fuel from Gurgaon to Ghaziabad is higher than the cost of staying at an OYO. If you were to use a genset and were to spend time on getting your air conditioner working with a genset, the cost of having the genset, calling a guy and having that headache of that is higher than the cost of staying at an OYO which is 10 meters away. That's the reason we operate 220, 30 hotels in Gurgaon alone as a part of the scale. So,
So these are low cost hotels, obviously.
so it started with low cost
I
hotels.
mean, how do you have a benchmark in
Yeah.
terms of you won't go above a certain level? Or?
Not really. I think yeah, low cost was a beginning because that's where the massive side of the problem existed in. Today, 60% of our business is budget, 40% of our business is mid-market, that is premium, and we are in the process of launching the upscale supply as well. But mostly budget and mid-market. The intent is, yes, in both of these places we have very, very strong benchmarks in terms of quality because our belief is even in the low scale segment, we would like to deliver some really, really high quality experiences. And as the consumer keeps moving up, there will be additional benefits. So for example, some of the things that remain consistent as a part of our promise continue to be free Wi-Fi, complimentary breakfast. So some of the things that we don't say as a promise, but we do is, for example, 350 thread count, single strip, satin linen in each room that we partner.
Satin linen. Wow.
So 32-inch LCDs, a DTH connection, a high-speed Wi-Fi, complimentary breakfast for every guest who comes in and stays. So at a lot of levels, and this is all at $15, $20 a night. Now, a lot of people would imagine that, a lot of people ask us this question of saying, are you losing money in each transaction because, this is so cheap? It is inexpensive in possibly a better word. I think no, we don't. Because unfortunately, a lot of hoteliers in the past, which possibly are changing now, used to think of it as a renting business. They would say, one room of mine will not sell for X rupees or lesser. But reality of our business, very similar to low budget carriers, is the revenue is a combination of not only the price per room, it is also the combination of occupancies that you drive. We drive 90% plus occupancies. At that volume, if you're able to generate the size of revenue, our ancillary revenue pieces in itself make up for the bottom line for our supplier.
So tell me, the investment in the upgrade of the hotel room is made by you or by the individual hotel owner?
So in the initial times, it used to be a risk versus reward. They used to say, if the supplier invests, he has to pay us lesser revenue share. And if we invest, we take higher revenue share. But today, a lot of finance companies have seen that owners who used to make 50 to 60,000 a month make 10 to 12 lakhs after partnering with some of these owners. Hence, they have said what OYO used to do, we'll do that now. So they invest money on our behalf, and we underwrite that because we give that kind of business to the hotel owner. So nowadays, either the hotel owner or the finance partner invests in the standardization of the hotel. And we've brought the time down from 17 or 18 days in the past to 72 hours today. So we have the right quality of vendors. We are by far the biggest buyers of bedding in India from the hospitality standpoint. We're possibly the largest hospitality buyer of DTH and Wi-Fi subscriptions nationally. So this scale enables us to do things at a much faster turnaround time, as well as in terms of value that we can generate for our supply partners.
So Ritesh, I have been to your office and it's a very large established office. I mean, one of the things, at least in our advertising business, that we constantly worry about is talent. And I believe to attract talent, you need somebody who the talent can look up to. So how did you go about hiring people? And what attracted them to you? And what kind of leadership, thought leadership, inspirational leadership could you provide at your age? I mean, it's fascinating. I can't get over it.
That's a great question. I think we possibly have created, and I'm very lucky in that context, one of the best talents across any startups in this country, and we can rival possibly the best startups that have ever been created. And I'll give you some examples. You work with some of them. Abhinav, who ran...
Let me say this. So guys, you haven't heard it all. Ritesh, I think 6 months ago or 3 months ago, hired another young man, not as young as him, but who's an engineer, graduate from Harvard, 10 years working experience with the Boston Consulting Group, leaves Dallas, comes to Gurgaon, joins Ritesh.
Thank you. And we've got.
And now both of them are getting ready to launch an advertising campaign behind which they're investing 50 crores. So that's good news for all you guys.
But you've recruited a lot more of that, right? And I think in that process, one of the things that's come about, and I've learned myself, is the new age, very, very high quality talent. What they look up to is people with a large vision, ability to roll up their sleeves and work with them to get that done. At the same time, having that unnecessarily crazy restlessness in doing that kind of stuff. Very early, it was very difficult for me to attract talent. And somebody gave me a very good advice. That is, whatever you want to do, put your 200% energy around it, and that energy is infectious. If you do that, you'll find people calling you and saying they want to work with you. And that is exactly what happened. I mean, in the last year and a half, not a single round of capital have we reached out to people for investments. People have called us and said, guys, you're doing a brilliant job. We really want to be partners with you guys. Which is reality in every kind of businesses. But I think for this, this is something that we felt that because we've done such a good job in really believing the kind of impact that we wanted to create and brought these great people look at these guys and they're like, we want to be a part of this story. And this is a network effects, right? Like you bring 10 smartest people. So for example, one of the 4 guys who sold a company to LinkedIn called SiteShare, heads of engineering. One of the guys who launched one of the 3 warehouses for Amazon in India, also Harvard Business School, sold his company to Pyramids, runs our expansions. So these are all some unbelievably good talent. And they come here because they see that belief in sort of saying we'll create something out of India that will possibly change the way people will stay away from home globally. So that's just the vision and the quality of talent you have around yourselves that inspire people.
Let me tell our audience about another interesting tidbit. I found it absolutely amazing that until 15 days ago, Ritesh, who as you know is from Orissa and now is sort of headquartered in Delhi, if you may say so, didn't have a house in Delhi. Every night he went to a different OYO room with his little bag and stayed the night there. And that way he experienced 300 OYO hotels himself. So every night, imagine, I mean, if that's not commitment, what is? That's fascinating.
For me, it was fun. I loved it. I think one part was, of course, staying at places which, eating your own dog food, which is reality is possibly the best way of learning what you guys are up to. But for me, individually, personally, this was actually a lot of value for myself because I was alone. And the pain of managing a maid, paying electricity bills, water bills, Wi-Fi bills, all differently, is just a lot. I just felt, every time I would come back at night, booking an OYO, I used to get a great room. I could call the manager for any support I needed. If electricity went off, I could tweet, and OYO would fix it for me. I loved it.
So, Ritesh, tell me, when did you last meet your mom?
Oh, that's been a while. I think 6 to 8 months back.
6 to 8 months back.
Yeah.
I asked this question because Ritesh's mom was very upset and very worried that how would Ritesh ever find a bride because he spent 2 days in college. I presume that worry is now behind us.
No, not at all. Mothers, right? The Thiel Fellowship, you sign a contract that
1 minute, let me tell you about this Thiel Fellowship. How many of you know about this Thiel Fellowship or program?
Yeah, very little. I'd love
Okay,
to
not too many. So this is the program run by a bright, not so young guy, and it is to encourage college dropouts. It's only to encourage college dropouts. And those those who win are actually given $100,000 to follow that dream. And our Ritesh won that. And he was the only Indian and who went and met Thiel. Am I right?
Yeah.
So tell us about your meeting with him and what kind of advice did he have for you?
So Peter, just for more background, he started a company called PayPal, was among the earliest investors in Facebook, possibly still sits on the board, and many other companies run by dropouts. So he created the whole PayPal mafia, which is basically 20 people whom he hired. All 20 went out and built billion-dollar companies, some of which are companies like Yelp, Tesla, and a bunch of them, right? Like you can name them. So his belief was similar to what I just said, that formal education doesn't necessarily mean the right thing for a lot of people who want to create great companies. So I think Peter is one of the most remarkable guys in history because he was the first guy who predicted the US housing bubble. So he did not buy a house until the housing bubble got burst. And after which he bought 6 houses. So a lot of levels. He's as many of you have seen Social Network, the movie, you'd see there's that one guy who wrote the 500K check to Mark. This is the guy. I think for me, he's possibly one of the most inspirational guys I've ever met. And during that period, you have to also sign a contract that you don't go to college. I think there were 2 big things I learned there. One of the things is being here in India, you around yourself, people who are not very successful, they end up pushing you towards saying, because you're here and because you're not so accomplished already, you should be thinking things that are very small. And with him, one of the things that I saw was he used to talk about thinking things really big. I'll give you an example. Before meeting him, I used to say I want to build an online marketplace for rooms in India. After meeting him, a year and a half back, I used to say I want to build India's largest hospitality brand. And nowadays I say I want to build the world's largest hospitality brand because India is already done. I think just the scale is just unbelievable, right? And you see people who say that and create that. And the second thing is doing things that are not usual, because again, a lot of people who tell you, is there a global comparison for this? Is something like this being done in the US? Is something like this being done in some other part of the world, right? And this is another thing which I learned from him, which is saying, no, it's not being done, but that doesn't really matter. So anyway, these were, and had some of the best entrepreneurs around me to learn this from. But since I signed the contract, even now on the breakfast table whenever I meet my mom, like she's like, do you think at some point of time you might go to college? The biodata might just not look so good. So that problem still
Let me
remains.
go on to a little bit of the future. So in your current frame of mind, do you see OYO rooms as a destination for you, or do you see it as an interim step for other bigger things to come?
I think it's definitely a destination because the dream is to possibly create the most loved hospitality brand globally. So now to become that in India is going to take a long time because great brands, and we have some people here who have created some unbelievable brands. It takes a lot of time. I mean, it'll take 10, 15, 20 years, and I'm committed to sort of building that. So I think for me personally, this is a destination to create a lot of value. We are only possibly the first step of possibly 1,000 steps that's yet to come. So yeah, I'm super excited about it because this journey for me was not about creating one more company, right? It was creating impact. Until the time people in India possibly believe, or people globally possibly believe, that as much as they use a cab, they have their house and everything else is OYO, where they don't need to stay with relatives, they don't need to stay with their family, friends, they don't need to, at night when they get drunk, figure out a way to get away back to house. I will continue building OYO. So it's a long journey and it's just the beginning now.
So, we heard yesterday that in this new age space, there is generally room for only one competitor.
Yeah.
Like in the older
yeah.
categories where there are at least,
Yeah.
4 or 5 successful competitors. So, when do you think you're going to see competition and how are you equipped to face it?
So I think,
Because
yeah,
as I'm talking to you, I'm just wondering at the next conference, I might be interviewing a 17-year-old guy who's got a million, $2 million funding.
no, I'm not generally concerned about any businesses that are already created today, which are in front of me, because my belief is the next person whom I'm very conscious and concerned about, and I try building my company towards, is that guy who's working out of a garage and has not, 1,400 employees, 2,500 hotels, great technology, shareholders. He has nothing of that sort, right? Like he just has one vision of creating a big thing. I'm concerned about that guy because, and at a lot of levels, my benchmark of pace and execution is that guy. That if I was at the garage building a great company without all of these pains, how would I create a company? That is the way we have to create it. Or every company that is existent today, the biggest risk that a company can take today is not taking a risk. And that is why I think at all levels, that's just one person I'm very concerned about at all times. So
Tell me,
you have to consider.
do you read a lot?
I do. I don't. So I probably I've decreased my reading and I watch a lot. So and that is my constant source of inspiration. For example, one of the best documentaries I watched recently is The Men Who Built America. America, right after the Civil War, was in a very difficult shape, and entrepreneurs in that country really created that country to possibly what it has become. Right, Rockefeller and a bunch of these guys who were back then. So I watch a lot. For speaking to your teams, I hear a lot of Martin Luther King. He was possibly one of the best speakers in his own times. So I think I watch a lot. Reading is becoming a little tad too difficult for me nowadays.
Good. So thank you very much, Ritesh.
Thank you so much.
And
This is great fun.
you have the good wishes of this entire house.
Ladies and gentlemen, clearly look at the disruption. Our first speaker of this morning, Sachin Tendulkar, receives a standing ovation. Ritesh Agarwal receives a standing ovation by the same audience. Come on. Thank you so very much for inspiring everyone.